We'll open the meeting at 6:30.
Who is? Oh, okay.
We will pass over item number 2, approval of the last minutes. So we'll get right into our budget hearing. Chief, we'll let you go first. You've been patient.
Good evening.
So we've got 2 new members since the last time you've been here, so if you want to introduce yourself to.
Danny Dowd, I'm the police chief from Chalmers.
Okay, we've been given copies of your budget, so if you want to walk us through the high points.
All right, so basically, the first page that you're looking at is basically everybody's salary listed out. The only things that sometimes change is, obviously if there's a contractual raise or somebody gets an education because of the Quinn Bill type benefits, but that's what we're forecasting right now as we sit. Overtime, and when we do police officers and dispatchers, typically we just take an average of, what normally we spend. Sick time coverage, again, is an average. Sometimes there's injuries outside of work that are covered, and, so depending on where they're injured and how they're injured, that factors in. The way Mara breaks down the budget is, so training wages is what we're actually paying the officer their wages to be at the training. And you may see like firearms twice. Sometimes that's the cost of sending the officer to firearms training, and the next time you'll see firearms might be the cost of the bullets and the targets.
Oh, okay.
And whatever goes along with the training. You normally, you have court time on average, vacation time, coverage, sometimes depending on manning. If you guys gave me 4 or 5 more offices, I probably wouldn't have to backfill as much as I do. Just kidding.
Geez, we've never heard that one.
No, I don't. And, we go into services and supplies. Those are some of the things we're up, sorry.
I know you've got your officer under contract. Is that, when's the next time you've got?
So their contract expires in June.
Of this, of
This
2025?
upcoming. But we were told, probably by Ashley,
Yes.
that, don't anticipate, just leave it alone. So
Oh.
we went with the numbers that are known to us.
Okay.
So they updated to get everyone current through June 30th of '24. And anything future, so for the FY25 budget is flat from now. There was no increases in there at all for anyone contractual or non-contractual, for pretty much everyone's budget across the board.
If your contract expires June 1st of
Well,
2025?
the end of
24.
June, so July 1st, starting a new fiscal year, they'll be without
Yeah.
a contract.
It'll be
Expires this year.
Okay.
So at the end of this fiscal year, so for FY25, they have no contract as of right now.
Yeah,
So we don't put anything in the budget for that.
you don't. So you just carry over the last contract.
In their,
value.
In their budget.
In
So
their-
we'll put a figure into HR's contract obligation budget when we know a better number. We'll plug something in there so then
Yes.
they're not out the money.
Which you should have a good feel by the May town meeting.
Yeah,
Hopeful.
we're
But
hoping.
we at least plug in some sort of placeholder in there to say, once the contract is settled, then we move those funds into the
Yeah.
appropriate operational.
But that's where you placehold it for the time being is in HR.
Correct,
Okay.
yep,
All right.
Yeah, so they come to our rescue once the contract
Yeah.
is ratified.
yeah. And we do that for every union.
Is that a 3-year contract?
Well, typically, but I mean, the town is free to do whatever
Yeah,
it chooses,
yeah.
so,
But
but
do we
typically,
typically do?
they tend to
Yeah.
gravitate towards 3 years. But then later on, we went to services and supplies. It's kind of broken down. There's been some maintenance in the building, although the building looks good, it's 30-plus years old. So I hate to keep giving Andrew credit because he's getting a big head, but he's helped out tremendously with like the roof and tying us in the water. So some of the issues that we've had over the years, and you folks too, I remember I came to you and said, hey, the cells won't pass inspection, and you guys came up with some money. So the building is looking pretty good internally. Parking lot could use, I won't get, but there's things that, it's 30 years old. The building is in good shape, maintenance, so we try to maintain the generator, and the HVAC system is 30 years old, so we're just trying to maintain things before we have some serious issues.
Joking aside about the fire, but do you have a full complement of?
Yes, so I'm good with staffing, right now. I mean, obviously, I'm kidding aside.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I was to get another officer or two, which I'm not here to beg for,
Yeah.
because I'm in good shape, there could be some cost savings, but
Yeah.
that's something,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
conversation down the road, the town has other priorities, so I'm not here to beg, because
But
I know
even with
there's
all
other
the
needs.
road work going on and all the rest of it, you've got enough officers to,
Well, we've done something for traffic purposes, for details and such. We've had to bring in some civilians, as many people in town have applied, civilians, and just said, hey, so what we try to do is run as many police officers as we can, and then send people they're called traffic constables, just to give them a name, and they can go out and do details. Because I panicked with Route 20.
I remember that was a
No,
concern
I
the
did,
last
because I
time,
just
right?
didn't know, well, how many jobs are they gonna cost me? 16 guys a day? I don't know. So it helped out. We're probably one of the only communities that have filled details. So everybody is now kind of mirroring what we did, because they're trying to solve their own problems, because they can't fill theirs, but we've been able to fill ours, which is, what?
Yeah, okay.
Of course, it's a lot easier right now. The construction is slowed down because of the
Yeah,
weather.
in the winter.
I don't know, I could be a total disaster come spring, and they're looking for 32 people. When you look at expenses, it's typical things. A lot of times we have contracts, just like software, you see is a big number. Cruiser maintenance and repairs is typically, we use a Manthorns here in Charlton that good with oil change. We get a scheduled day to go down there for repairs and stuff, and try to maintain that. These are just averages what we normally spend.
Have you gotten the cruisers that you ordered a year and a half ago?
Yes, but luckily for me, people have gone off crash some since then, weather-related crashes as well, so that's the problem. I no sooner do I get ahead, and then I start dealing with how do we replace the car and the time, the logistics. Unfortunately, real quickly, years ago, Ford used to, there was a reason why everybody had like the same kind of cruisers as like the taxi cabs, the Ford Crown Vics.
Yep.
Ford used to discount them at such a discount, it was silly to even look elsewhere. We didn't have to shop around too much because we had the state bid. COVID really threw the car market. Like the days of paying a sticker were just gone. People were offering $15,000, $20,000 above sticker, and especially for something, a desired vehicle, a Corvette, the numbers were crazy, a Bronco, whatever was the hot car, they were offering more. So they kind of just said, we're no longer doing deals with the police. So, and then all the issues with COVID as far as the chips and the factories closing, so that a lot of times they said, hey, we're out of cars, we don't have cars, we don't know when the cars are gonna get built, and we don't know what they're gonna cost. So obviously it makes it a little more challenging trying to figure out what we're gonna pay, since so much is unknown. But they've gotten a little better, but they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So thus we try to maintain them. Some of the contracts that we have, the fingerprint machine, and I'm just looking here real quick. I'm not trying to bore you. Cloud storage is something we're looking at, just as far as body-worn cameras and things like that.
How is that working out, the body cameras and?
Oh, it's a logistical nightmare. However, we've made a lot of progress. We just finished training today. It's a little bit of work getting the software and everything, because it can do like a gazillion things. But we're very fortunate we got a grant. Anthony Gribbins, he came from Holden, he's now a sergeant here. He's been phenomenal as far as writing that grant. He's very good on technology, so it's coming. I would assume it would probably be rolling out, I would think, give people a couple weeks to get familiar with the new technology. It's just like getting a new cell phone. How do I do this? Or how do I, give them a week or two, and then we'll probably roll out.
So it's bringing it back, plugging it in, getting it uploaded?
It's all
That's
that,
the hard.
and some of it, some of it is just gonna be, people make mistakes. They leave it, they drop it, they take it home. We've gotta figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
But, so, we're working on it. The idea we're looking at, we're working with Jeff, is that hopefully will download the minute you pull in, so you can't forget to do it. It's automatically.
Oh, okay.
But that's a lot of technology and stuff way beyond me.
But that's all contract stuff, that cloud stuff, that's a yearly.
Yeah,
and-
so that's a cost, but that, I don't know if you remember the meeting, I think Jeff was here from IT, kind of saying, he had a joint meeting at one
Yep.
time, and he was just basically saying that was the direction that he thought we should go in,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Canine expenses, we've got 3 dogs now, so one's a service dog, it's just a pet. I should say that, it's probably, but it's just there to be friendly. And the other 2 are actually working dogs. Training, again, that's always, we try to figure out what we're trying to do and kind of come up with a number, what it's gonna cost to send them, again, through wages.
Mhm.
That is really all I have. If there's anything you want to specifically go over, I will more than willing
I've got a
to.
quick question, Ashley, so this number of 3.4 is what percent different than current budget? Are we up 3%?
Yeah, you mean ClearGov?
5%?
I can do the math quick.
Because
here.
we don't have comparatives, unfortunately, on our budget, we can't see what.
Yeah, Andrew's gonna log into ClearGov quick. If not, I'll do the math.
You do the math real quick. I'm gonna go grab my laptop.
You don't
It's,
know this
Is
off
it
the
not
top of your
working?
head?
And
it doesn't-
Joe,
You just
it
have
doesn't like
5%
the-
more or
the
3%?
mobile, or
A lot of times you gotta-
iOS, so I'm gonna go grab my
A lot of
laptop.
times you've got to calculate worst case scenario. If everybody is, I have to provide vacation for this many people, and I have to backfill it with overtime, but that's why typically what I've been able to get money back is, that's not always what happens, so it goes back to the town. And do you want to do capital too while we're here?
Yeah,
or-
yeah, we'll review it while he's
All right, I
going
got
to
any
find that.
questions, I mean, I'm here to mislead you.
Just, the only question that I have is the new position that was approved in October. I think,
It's funny, see,
I just want to make sure that I have it right, that that was already added into the fiscal year 2024, and that was an increase.
So what the town did is they gave me part of the year for
Okay.
that. So they covered it from Andrew just left. They basically covered it from October to the January. So I was covered for part of the year from the previous budget. Andrew had some funding, and I'm responsible for it moving forward.
Okay. I guess I was thinking it was going to be a bigger increase in salaries from the 2 fiscal years based on that position, but.
I don't want to speak for Andrew and how he
Do-
pulled a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, you're not gonna see a huge difference right now because there's no, you don't really have a lot of COLA increase. You have no COLA increase at all for anybody in here. No police officers or any of the admin staff.
Okay.
Because we're going through that salary survey for all the non-union staff, so we're waiting for those numbers before we factor them into the budget, and then you don't see really any COLA adjustments for anyone because they're going through their contract negotiations still. So that's probably why you don't see a huge difference right now. Once all those, if those numbers are in there, you'll see a bigger difference. But the full year salary is in there for the deputy. And then it brought everyone to what they would be as of June 30th. So you see a little bit of a salary difference just because, like Danny was saying, you have some of the officers that hit their step increase in the contract or they, plus their Quinn bill. So that's all factored into that number
Things that we
right
could
now.
factor in.
Right.
Try to factor in.
So
I
she
don't
basically
know.
treated this as of like if you were at June
Right.
30th, where they would be.
And then the only other question I have, you spoke about the increase for the canines, you said I was confused about the amount of canines that you have.
Yes, and I wanted to make some repairs. Put it all in one. There's 3 dogs now, no one.
Dogs are at the station, or do they go home with the,
They go home with the handlers, but they've got to have a place to put them. While
While they're in the
they need to take a prisoner to court or something, you know, and we gotta have a place to put them. So we have an older area, but it's unfortunately hadn't been used in years and probably needs some repairs.
just out of curiosity, how useful have they been? And how mental have they been in the last?
Well, the puppy is, you know, friendly and, you know, nobody likes me, so they certainly enjoy seeing the puppy and, you know, having the
Oh, that's
puppy
just
and
total
going off,
salary.
rather than seeing me. The other 2 dogs have been very productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're called quite a bit throughout the years because they've been very good.
Oh, okay, so Lester could call you up and say,
They
hey.
do, and a lot of times they seek them out because they're, so the two dogs, one of the dogs came, he's older, Pablo. He came from Southbridge, but he's one of the only dogs in the state that can detect narcotics inside the body, in their body cavity. So when somebody thinks that somebody's hidden some drugs, you know, I don't know, we better get, let's call, you know, Officer Reddick and Pablo,
Yeah.
and he's been able to find things.
Yep.
So he's unique in what he can do, and Derek's been very, he's put a lot of time and effort into the dog, so his dog is unbelievable what he puts now, but he puts the time and effort.
Yeah.
He's like a
He's very big into tracking, the dog's had a lot of success finding people, he's found
Yeah.
dogs, he's,
Nice.
Hi,
Hello. Come on up.
I've been listening on the way
Is there
All
extra?
right, if you wanna go through, walk it through your capital
Sure.
budget while we're waiting.
all right, so we kind of looked at some projects and things that we'd like to possibly do, cars and some cruisers as we discussed earlier. We pretty much are now on the path of 3 a year, probably moving forward.
His number here goes to Friday.
I think you see like a $30,000 increase compared to the last year, 210. It's just the reality is that they've come in like $8,000 and change, and I don't know what next year's prices are going to be. That's just the market. So, you'll see that they're pretty sharp looking. We're in some black towers, but to be honest with you, they were cheaper than the Fords. So that was, I got the $8,000 piece savings.
Yeah.
So it wasn't to make them look like cars, it was just that I saved $8,000 per car. So I don't know what's gonna happen with their prices. It could flip again, and we may be back to Fords. It's just, we try to do what we can do with it.
You still thinking 2029 you'll be able to buy 3 cruises for $240,000?
No, no, I'm just optimistic. Hey.
I didn't know if he was cutting
I don't
back
even
to
know
2
if-
cruises per
right.
year,
I
okay?
don't even know if you'll be able to buy a gas car in 2020.
That's true,
Don't get me
too.
started on that.
That's true, too.
Some of the things that we mentioned, so you'll see some things that aren't in, you know, that we're looking for certain money steadily. So cruiser technology typically is items that go in the cruiser. Unfortunately, when you buy new products, the old product doesn't always, something that fit a Ford was custom to fit a Ford. Now he's changed to a Chevy. I don't have the ability always to pull it out and put it back in lights sometimes, but, you know, there's a lot of things that are specific. The cage is a big cost item, and it's kind of molded to fit the interior, the way it sits. So it's good when you have an accident, you have a Ford sitting down at the salt shed, you can go swap it out, but I can't do that when a Chevy gets into an accident, I can't pull it out and reuse it. So typically we run technology, that's also laptops, so a lot of problems. Well, area police departments are experiencing this, Jeff was probably here, he'd tell you about Windows 11. So apparently people bought these tough books, very expensive, very good product, but they're in the junk pile come July if you don't, if they're not compatible to
Yeah.
Windows 11. So it's just, unfortunately, it's the technology. They're still working and operating, you just can't use them.
Right.
So unfortunately, you gotta have a plan to replace those laptops, and unfortunately, to get a ruggedized laptop, you're in the $5,000 range.
They lasted a while though, right? I
They
mean,
do.
That's been out for a while.
I have one that's 20-something years old, however, can't use it. So, you know, and each time there's an upgrade, we lose some, what we have, so we've been replacing. So we're in good shape, we're not like some police departments that can replace them all. Tactical gear is something that I'm trying to work with grants and see what we can get, but I'm gonna prepare for it if I don't get it. And if I don't need it, I certainly won't ask for it if we get this grant, but grants are funny. We're trying to work with Dudley so that the idea, the concept being, you know, if we go to a school and we grab shields and things like that, it doesn't matter if Dudley grabs ours or we grab theirs, we're all familiar with it, it's the same product. So we'd like them to be on board just so that, you don't have something completely different and we're scratching, what is that, how do you use it, that type of thing.
So technical gear is things like those fiberglass shields or
Yeah, so
flak
I,
jackets?
your head would explode if I told you that some of them go for like $8,000 a piece.
A shield?
Some of them, not all. You gotta figure out what'll stop a brick, might not stop a rifle round, what are you looking for? So some of them do all kinds of things and lightweight, I don't know what they're made of. They're probably made out of platinum for all I know. I don't know why they're $8,000, but they're very expensive. But I think it's a one-time buy.
Well, that's why I was wondering why it's just in this 1 year.
But once I have them, and I put them in a car, I'll just move them, as we replace the cars, I'll just remove the shield and put it in the new cruiser. I won't buy shields each time. So there's enough front cost. So I'm hoping to do grants. We've been applying for some. We're hoping to do something with Dudley, but they kind of went a little astray because of the school issues, so, but we're hopefully back on the same page.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. What is Asher?
Active shooter, hostile, event response,
Some
it
more
always
gear.
changes, the acronym always changes, it's always something to do with school. So it's active shooter,
Okay.
but they, for some reason, every time they create a new product and a new program, then they say, oh, this is the new training, but it's typically the same.
So it was
It's
Alice,
responding-
now it's Asher?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And the idea is, it's whether it's a workplace or whether it's a school, but schools get more,
Okay, thank you. Can I ask a question about before, when you were at the budget, when I was coming in, sorry? You talked about sometimes the dogs get called out to other communities. Is that through mutual aid, or is there any way that
Yes.
we get any compensation back if our dog that we put funding
Well,
into?
yes and no. So everybody took me. Real money answers, we get very little, other than helping our neighbors.
Okay,
But there's things that our neighbors have that we don't have, and we want them to come and share their resources.
okay,
And then there's something we're involved in called SEMLEC, that's like an area regionalization of area towns,
okay,
and some have services. We have a drone, we also let the drone, but what we do is, rather than having one person at our PD and having folks pay overtime, we can say, is anybody in the area got a drone? And SEMLEC covers that. So sometimes when you have dogs, you can have a dog on SEMLEC.
okay.
So our dogs are on SEMLEC, but if they're off, we can call Webster, and they send their dog free of charge, because they're on SEMLEC. It's supposed to be a sharing thing. Some departments don't offer it. Some departments can barely turn on the lights, so they don't have any services, and they kind of just use us.
Okay,
I don't mean it in a bad way,
Yeah, I
but the
know.
reality is that they're getting a lot for what they return.
thank you.
Plate readers?
Plate readers, well, that's pushed out, but that's the technology, you can put it right on the cruiser, and it mounts, and it'll tell you your car's unregistered, you got a warrant, the technology's there, so, you probably would, ideally would wanna put that on somebody that's on the traffic side of things, so that they're out there looking, and they could be a lot more efficient. It's technology, it's expensive, but.
Is that the cost of one plate reader plus, that's the cost of one? And then I'm assuming you're gonna have some subscription for some service that transfers.
Well, I think they get you initially on the hook for that, once it's up and running, but who knows? I mean, there could be cloud storage, I don't know, but we don't have it, so.
Yeah, okay.
Body cams, $32,000. We got a grant for, I don't know if you recall, like, the original body cams were like $250,000. $32,000 is a lot of the storage that goes along with it. There's a product where you can link the videos so the stored as evidence, and it automatically keeps that record for instance, if somebody was seriously in like a vehicular homicide, you might have to keep that because of lawsuits or court cases. You might have to keep that for a period of 7 years. But just a simple speeding ticket might be 6 months.
Which one it's
And
replacing
that program
for me?
deletes what is needed, and you have to go in and say, this is this, and once it's assigned a value, it pulls it for that period of time for retention for public records.
So is this a server that's on site, or again, they're not?
This is the cloud, basically, for the body-worn cameras.
Okay.
So that's the cost we bared, but the grant paid for the actual cameras and installation.
Right. That's why, so then my question, Andrew, is that a capital expense or operating?
For the body worn cameras?
we'd
Well,
move,
for the cameras
I'm
themselves.
sorry,
I-
for the operations of it.
Right.
We'd move that into the operational budget versus being a capital request, because that's an ongoing.
That's what I would have
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
That's,
That's getting moved.
right. So that's gonna get moved out of this.
Right, and then it back into the operational budget.
Traffic camera monitoring.
All right, that's where, unlike the last thing we talked about, that was actually on the cruiser mounted and moved around with it, this is where you do an intersection. So we've had some serious accidents at like Stafford and Center Depot. Where you got the flashing lights and somebody, unfortunately, there's serious accidents when something happens. Everybody blames the other person. We've got here at Brookfield and Stafford Street, the four-way stop. As soon as somebody hits, oh, I stopped, no, she didn't stop, you know, it's that. We thought if we could put 3 or 4 intersections where there's frequent accidents, that it was, it may not save a life, but we could certainly determine what happened, common areas of accidents. And that's the technology and the monitoring.
Now, would that pick up somebody running a light or running a red light?
It's not for that purpose, but the technology is there, yes. So you could, I know places like the city do that, you get an automatic ticket in the mail, but that's not what we're looking to do. It's more, you get a dangerous intersection, and 2 people have collided, somebody was at fault. You get an officer that goes there, sometimes they're dealing with what's on scene, and there's no witnesses, and all you get is, you're trying to make the best judgment you can. This would just be a device to, you know, show in court, and basically, for the insurance companies, who's ever looking for it, and say,
Yeah.
hey, your client clearly didn't stop, he went right through the stop sign.
Yeah.
And, you know, this woman is right, that's what happened, we would be able to do that.
No, I'm not necessarily against it, it's just, I've almost been killed twice by 18-wheelers over by CVS,
Oh, yeah.
just blowing the light. I mean,
Well, we have complaints about, no,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, the
But
only
it would
problem we
if it would
found out,
catch 'em, yeah.
the only problem we found out with the camera system is, it's not a problem, it's just life. The state isn't so amenable to us doing this on their Route 20.
Okay.
But that's a state road. So, I mean, we're trying to put it like, the most common area of accidents, they're not all serious, is 20 and 169. People just stop, the person behind them hits them. It's usually just paper exchanges, but there's so many of them. This could obviously help if we could mount something over by the cemetery on the corner, would clearly show that this is what happened. You know, the person didn't stop and hit their brakes like you claimed, you rear ended.
All right. We don't have to get too deep into the details on that one.
I'm all about being brief, if you wanna be brief. Parking lot's a big nut, that's a huge nut. And I'm just telling you, at some point, it's 30 years old. It's, I don't want to pay the parking lot if you're going to expand and come back twice. So I think the town has to have a plan. We're extending the parking lot, okay, now let's think about paving. We're not extending the parking lot, okay, now let's think about paving. But let's not pave twice, and let's not rip up new asphalt.
Like I say, how many years, guys, has this been on, and just gets bumped another year out? gets
Yeah.
bumped
It's still
another year?
serviceable. I mean, it's not like you're going in there and falling through,
Yeah.
you know, holes. It's just
Yeah.
that it's, at
He's
some
also
point.
running out of space down there too.
Yeah, that's another
a big issue.
problem, but, another big one on there was coming up, I guess that's really it. That was really generous of you folks.
And
Any
computer
questions?
upgrades
Anything
are
I
just,
can-
computer upgrades are just you upgrading in the station, some of them.
IT here has been phenomenal. It's nice to have Jeff and Ken, because they help us a lot of times, and they'll help us when they have technology. But I can't always go and beg somebody, because they have to take it from somewhere, or not give it, you know, the library has needs too, and the town hall has needs, and it can't always be, hey, Danny Dow needs all this, you know, so some of it we gotta own ourselves. But they've been very good.
Okay. And did you come up with a number increase from?
Yes.
We added the 32,000 in to his operational budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a 3.96%, or sorry, 3.93 increase. Again, that is
2.93.
3.93%
Oh, 3.93.
increase, but again, that's before any sort of contractual
Right,
increase.
So in this operational budget, wages is really the only thing that's still hit me.
For
Right.
everybody,
Right,
that's
for
across the board,
everybody.
yeah.
Right,
Unless there's a union that has a contract, those numbers will get factored in, like highway, their contract is still good next year, and
Understand.
fire is still good for next year, so both of their budgets have their union members as an increase, but any administrative staff that isn't in the union
Yep.
won't have any increase.
Yeah, okay.
That's across the board.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
For all of our town staff, like
Yeah.
if you put everybody in the same bucket, and say it was a 2% increase or something like that,
Mhm.
do you know the number that increases our budget each year? For the schools, I know just to start off, it's a $1 million increase just for contractual obligations
Yeah.
above what you ended.
Yeah, ours isn't that bad, I think,
I'm sure it's not, because we have so many more
Right.
staff,
Yeah.
but they have so many more.
I think
staff.
when we did like last year's 2.5% increase was like a 90,
No,
Was it
so,
more
so
last year?
I factored in for this year 3% for all non-contractuals, because it was gonna be about 90,000.
Okay,
So figure 30,000 per percentage.
thank you.
I think, as I said, I think when we did it last year, it was about, about the same.
Wasn't a huge,
No,
you know,
yeah,
you're
it's not-
talking,
Yeah, it's not that
Round
much.
numbers.
Yeah.
Any other questions of the chief? We got him here.
Chief, do you want to talk about leasing cruisers?
Yeah,
Not
thank you.
cruisers, but
Thank you for
reminding you.
complimenting you, right, because it is National Compliment. Thank you again for being so astute. All right, so I'll be brief. So typically, when you have a patrol car, it's used 24/7, so everybody's using it. Each 8-hour shift just starts jumping in the car, so we don't have, in most cases, it doesn't make to me any sense to lease those cars, because 2-3 years, they're headed to the junkyard. Some we're using on details and stuff, but they're light, they typically have 150,000 miles on it, and they're starting to get to the point where they need to be replaced. And that's why we try to do the 3 a year. There are some cars or cruisers that typically admin, that take home cars. And the canine offices have a car because the dog has to go with them. The dog goes, they leave work, the dog goes with them to their homes, and they take care of them there, and they be on call. To me, it makes sense to lease those vehicles. And the reason being is, like, I think Auburn leases all their vehicles currently.
Okay.
So what they typically do for a municipal lease is, you stretch the payments out over 3 years, 5 years, whatever you choose to do, and then at the end of that contract, you get to buy the car for $1. So you're just pushing off the payments. And we tend to just say, we're just gonna buy it, but some of these cars aren't worth anything at the end of 3 years. Where the cars that we barely use or put very low miles on, I think it might make sense to lease them, and you have an asset that you got to replace more often, and they still hold their value. But that's something that, I don't know if you had a chance to call around and see
So
some of
I've talked to
your.
a couple accountants, and I think we have a meeting next week, so I'm gonna ask, like, we have a central mass group. And there's a lot of towns that actually do lease. It's a toss-up whether they lease their whole fleet, if they lease the cruisers, if they lease just admin vehicles. Some of them lease vehicles for like town vehicles. But everyone that I've talked to, I haven't heard a bad thing about it.
I
I've
just
talked to a
think the town
handful
should
of
have it as an
towns.
option.
Yeah.
If you choose not to do it,
Right.
what happens is, my understanding is, I think.
We have to go to
the
town meeting.
to even authorize it.
Right.
At least it's something you could consider. Doesn't make sense in this case. Okay, don't do it.
Yeah.
It makes sense in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, consider it, this is what we should do, not do. But to not be able to do it at all, to not even have the ability to, we're pretty much, cars in an accident, I gotta replace it, and I gotta, you know.
So you're saying something like the K-9 unit that might only do
Yeah, you know, and I
60,000 a
can't
year
speak for the
or-
other departments, but maybe it makes sense if the building inspector needs a new vehicle, he doesn't put 10,000 miles a year on it, maybe you lease it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to lease it, but you folks are gonna have to figure out what makes sense financially to do or not. I'm just suggesting you have the ability to do it, you can at least have it as an option,
Yeah.
weigh the pros and cons.
He's thinking of one person driving the vehicle, so whether it's an admin or the K-9, because,
That's what I'm thinking, they're not putting the
It's
miles
ju-
on it,
right.
you're gonna get, that car's gonna last 7 years.
and it's
Why not
one
stretch the
driver
payments?
driving the car. You don't
Right.
have multiple drivers driving it different, it's one person driving the
To
car.
me, it
that
doesn't make
person
sense with
drives
the
the same.
cruisers, because it's such a short period of time, it's not gonna change anything with a duty car. At the end of 3 years, it's probably going to off the detail and run with it for being in service. Sometimes we donate it, to another department that needs it or something like that, if it's still got some life in it.
Yeah.
But, anyways, it's just something to think about, I don't mean to tie you
Yeah.
up, just,
Yeah.
but I know some communities, they lease everything. I can't speak for Nick, I don't know what a, truck costs and how many miles, it's probably gonna have to be something you discuss and figure out whether it makes sense for that department or not. Maybe it doesn't. That's the answer.
I mean, dollar for dollar, is it similar? I mean,
It's the same price,
same price.
but at the end of the lease, you buy it for $1.
Right, so a lot of businesses do that because of write-offs.
Yes, what they do for a municipal lease program is say, if you were to finance it, you might get 3 cars this year, but it's gonna cost you the price of one.
I don't know if it means like a separate article.
But they're in service. Now, next year, you get the 3 cars, you're only really seeing 2, but those cars are still operational, the 3 that you got, you could be very much ahead of the game.
So they're all lease to own, that's a big difference from lease, yeah.
That's a unique benefit that the
Yeah.
municipality has that you or I didn't have.
Right.
We looked at that like 12 years ago, Dan, and the
Here I am.
current administration wouldn't go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm
But
just
the
suggesting it as
numbers-
an option, I'm
the
not saying
numbers
you have
were
to do it, but at least
in favor.
weigh its value and think
Yeah.
about it,
Back
or
then.
depending upon,
Yeah.
you probably have some departments in town that have very little
Mm-hmm.
mileage, so maybe it's a good deal for them. Maybe it's not for somebody else, but I think at least it's an option.
But what about the fact that you have to outfit the vehicle every 3 years? How
That's
much-
included in the cost.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're lease to owns, right? There's a big difference between leasing and lease to own, because, you own the equipment.
But I would-
You're not giving it up.
Yeah, to me, to make sense for me, I have to have somebody that puts low miles on it to make any sense.
Right, to make it worth the while.
So, okay, you're exclusive driver to this, you take the dog home, you live in town, you're not putting a gazillion miles on it, I'll take my chances with you leasing. Somebody, well, this car's in service all the time, well, I don't know if they're gonna put 500 miles on it today or 1,500, I don't know. So I wouldn't wanna take a risk with a lease, because I own that car for 3 years.
Right.
And, if it's got 200,000 miles and it's sitting out back and it's 2 years old, it doesn't make any sense. I'm still paying for the lease
Right.
another year. But
Right, we self-insure, I imagine, so, do we self-insure? Because
Yeah.
usually that is handled with insurance and gap and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
anything else?
No?
Email me or-
Anybody get anything?
Thank you.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you for your time.
All right, you're up, Nick. Okay, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, hello everybody, Nick Peel, DPW Superintendent as of this past September.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So what we typically do here, Nick, on the budget hearings, is just, as you saw the chief do.
Yep.
Go through your budget. If we
Okay.
hit a high item that we want to ask, we'll ask, and
Right. Was touched on earlier, the union contracted people, they got their 2% calculated in there. Superintendent, foreman, and the executive assistant are currently at that rate. That's 2%, that was. But it's a little bit more than 2% because we initiated a step program for the salary scale. And as an entry level, you start out at a light equipment operator. Once you obtain the licenses necessary, which is a 2A, 4E, 4G hydraulic licenses, along with your CDL, you automatically are bumped up to the heavy operator's pay in the following July 1, following fiscal year. So 2 guys already have obtained their licenses come July 1. They're getting, you know, much more than 2%. They're getting $5 raises when they make a step.
Are these licenses that they obtain on their own, or do we send them for training, or?
No, they obtain them on their own, they're reimbursed upon
Oh, okay,
successful
so-
completion.
Yep.
And obtaining
For the class that they take to get the license, or just the cost of the license?
just the cost of the licenses.
But
It's
you
like
don't
the
just-
renewals.
But yeah, they go take an exam.
Huh?
They have to go take an exam.
Yep, right.
So it's similar to the established workers that have renewals for their licenses,
Mhm.
those are also reimbursed.
Mhm. Okay.
So that's why that's a little bit higher than the contracted 2%. The road machinery and maintenance, put a 5% bump in there just because of the cost of parts and labor
Mhm.
for heavy machinery is just astronomical increase over the last few years.
Mhm.
Any little bit will help. I think maybe a 5% over the next couple of years. We'll be gaining on it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the quality of your equipment right now? The level of
Our fleet is, we have a very good fleet of trucks. It's always in rotation, obviously. We got some trucks that are still operational after 20 years. Those would be the first on the list, in the replacement line. But I think there's only one sander plow unit that's really in question, kind of end of life. That one, probably it's last winter, in all actuality. The machinery portion of it, that's where we're kind of aging a little bit. And our grader and our grade, all those are late 90s. Pieces of equipment that get used very frequently.
Mhm.
I'm not looking to replace either one of them at this point, not even in the 5-year plan. I think we can go further with them.
Mhm.
The roadside brush mowers, those take a little bit more of a beating with that giant mower on one side and kind of the weight of it really
Torques.
wears down all the bearings, and, you know, we've gone through Mowatech's complete services. And you'll see that on the capital in a couple of years, because one of them is, I think it's 17 years old, and again, at the end of life there. Expenses I kept the same. Uniforms the same, that's a $1,000 reimbursement per person for any work-related gear,
Annually?
yes. Along with a uniform company we utilize. I think there's only one guy that actually utilizes at this point, but he pays a portion, town pays the rest of the portion. That's how we get to the 16, because there's 13 of us, and 3 for the uniform rentals.
Mhm.
So, I'm sorry, I'm following along. The matching uniform rental is only for one person that we spent, paid?
Yes.
And what does that consist of?
He's the mechanic, so he's full of grease every day. That's when I
So-
get into his vehicle.
So they like
So he
wash
changes
it?
every day. They bring us, or bring him, 5 pairs of pants every week, 5 shirts, jackets. They supply many things.
Okay.
But it gives him an opportunity to change up at the end of the day
Okay.
before he heads out. Because he jumps in his own vehicle and instead of ruining his vehicle, he goes that route.
I totally get that, but that's $4,000.
It's been a long-established practice, if that's something you want to look into.
No, just asking questions
Yep.
right now, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Dam maintenance, that's perpetual care, weed whackers, string, stuff like that. We mowed the dam over in Glen Echo in South Charlton. So it's just materials to keep up with that. Field maintenance, grounds unit, that's the contractor CCL. You'll see him mowing Common and all the other town-owned properties
Mhm.
throughout town. He also does the snow plowing at some of the buildings here, as well as the sidewalks, he salts them per storm. That I went up, his contract's coming up April 1st.
Just a question for Ashley. So I see next to where it says field maintenance, moved to DPW.
So it used to sit under recreation's budget, and how many years ago was it? Maybe 4 years ago now, I want to say, that we moved it over, maybe even 3, we moved it over to DPW. Since they pay for the snowplow anyway, it was easier for them to upkeep the maintenance, just to keep it all under the same, since it's maintenance for the buildings, for landscape things, to keep it all under one umbrella for DPW. But that's just an old note from when
That's
when
just
we
an
had
old
moved it, yeah. I wanna say it's been there since like probably the FY 20 budget.
Okay. Sorry.
No, no problem. That's just a proposed increase since it is going out to bid. Although we did have some conversation with him about extending it, there was an option in the contract. We're still talking. He was slightly willing to engage in that. So that may stay at the 60,000 per year. But he also talked about a different payment plan.
Yeah.
I don't know if that worked out.
Yeah, I think Andrew was gonna draft up an agreement, see if he'll accept our new agreement, and see if he'll opt to renew one of our, at least 1 year of the contract, if not both, that we have as an extension.
So one of his hangups was the installments were monthly, $5,000 a month throughout the year. And he didn't think it made too much sense for him to be getting paid for mowing January, February, March, when it could help with cash flow during the mowing season. So maybe if we did something like 6 payments from July to December.
Yeah.
And then he still bills for snow events
Yeah.
separately.
Right.
So that's where I go with that.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes with, if he's willing to accept the extension.
And that option, that's his option, not our option, obviously, the way that you're.
It is our option,
Right.
but we are cognizant that if we, exercise it too much, that he may not be interested in rebidding when the contract does end. So, kind of depends on where the market is. If it was like any other typical year and it was maybe a 2% increase, or he was able to project it out, but we know 3 years ago the labor market was a lot different than it is today. So just being aware of that, if the numbers still make sense, it is a minor change to help him with cash flow, and then keeps him interested in the contract. Easy negotiation.
That doesn't really affect us either with our cash flow, because we get it, we're not getting
Right.
it periodically through the year, so
Right. It's one budget,
one, yeah.
right? I mean, it's a little extra because you're paying it in 6 months instead of 12, but at what point is it worth us to have to go back out to bid again, rather than, right? They do a great job. We have no complaints, so.
To keep it at that
Yeah.
price, we get a nice one,
Yeah.
a nice up.
Yeah.
Let's see. Construction drainage, that's level. Stormwater management, that. Okay, that's the one that needs to go up drastically. The stormwater management is state mandated program, MS4. Part of that is every town in the Commonwealth has to come up with a program through them. They utilize data over the last several years. They did a study within town. And they're also taking our collection data, our catch basin waste, our sweepings. And they basically tell us how many, which roads get swept a minimum of 1 time, some will get minimum of 2 times. And then obviously, additionally, if there's a washout or other construction issues. But the state is actually saying, like around the lakes, we should be sweeping them at a minimum of 2 times per year, and then looking at the collection tonnage. And the last 2 years, we've been at 50%. They want to see us basically double. And the big cost there is getting rid of the catch basin waste. we have a contractor come in, test it, make sure it's suitable to be taken away, and that was the entire budget last year. It was $20,000, and just to haul that one pile was $19,000 and change.
So this 40,000 is the actual cost of collecting this stuff in catch basins and all that?
It's
This
actually
is
the cost of getting rid of it, because it's hazardous material.
Rid of it.
We can't stockpile it, we can't use it.
Yep.
Years ago, we used to be able to, mix it in, make glue and other products, or bed fill areas.
Mhm.
That's not the case anymore, unfortunately.
Like
So
salty
that's a big
dirt?
cost.
Is it like salty dirt?
Yeah, basically, those catch
oily,
basins
yeah.
within the street, they catch a lot of oil and gas and hazardous materials that, they don't want to see finding their way to the lakes and rivers.
Are we looked upon more harshly because we're a community served by potable water through wells, private wells?
I don't believe so.
So it's really our population density that triggers MS4. They look at, specifically, I don't want to say, I'm not sure the exact numbers, but if you reach a certain population density in certain areas, it'll trigger MS4 areas, and it's typically around lakes. But if you have one area in town, you're an MS4 community. So.
I mean, from an environmental standpoint, I think that it's good to pick it up more, it's just costly.
That's it.
Yeah.
The tree removal unit, that level, that's in conjunction with the tree warden. We have a contract with a tree removal, and we use every penny of that the last past couple of years, taking problematic trees down, dangerous trees, including roadways.
What is the rule on taking down trees? I heard or read somewhere where if it's within 10 feet of the roadway?
Well, different roads, not every road is the same. We have a state guideline. Each road has its right-of-way, has its width of road, has its width of shoulder. And it could be 2 feet, Carpenter Hill, 2 feet off the edge of the road, no longer town property. Go to the road like Flint Road, it's 45 feet from center of the road. So, we're 15 feet on either side.
Yeah.
So we have to use our guidelines to determine when we can take a tree. Sometimes it looks like it's right on the edge of the road, but it's actually on somebody's property.
Mhm.
And some people don't want their trees cut down, even if they're unsightly or dropping branches in the road.
Yep.
So that can be a battle.
Mhm. Okay.
Snow and ice, leaving that the same,
Yep.
knowing that most years we'll be going over it.
How are you doing this year so far?
So far, we have a $63,000 balance as of yesterday.
With the bulk of winter yet to come. What did we end up spending on snow removal
I
last year?
think we were 100 over 203
About
last
100
year, if I recall, yeah.
That's
And that was all ice. The ice is expensive
Mhm.
because you have to salt more, and salt's the
It's
expensive
the
part.
salt is the
Yeah.
biggest expense, and then some major breakdowns. And prepping, in the fall, we're getting our trucks ready. There's an expense there.
Mhm. Okay.
And I don't know if everyone knows, that's the only budget that we're allowed to legally deficit spend in. So as long as you budget as long as what your current year budget, your next year budget is as much as your current year budget, you can deficit spend. If it's less, you can't deficit spend. If it's more, you can deficit spend. But remember, the next year, you have to be at least that. So that's one of the budgets we tend not to touch, to raise, even though we know we overspend it.
Because it's not gonna help you.
Correct, we can deficit spend it, so we'd rather not raise that budget if we don't have to, because we could probably use the money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Knowing that if we don't have the money come May at town meeting, you could raise it on the tax recap the next year.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those accounts that you're allowed to do that with, and snow and ice is one of them. So we always use free cash, we always save free cash for May, because by then snow's over and we know what the balance is, so we usually just use free cash to take care of whatever the negative balance is.
Road repair being your last item there. Or am I looking at something different? Oh, no, that,
Road repair and paving,
road repair and paving,
level,
150,000.
that went up, looks like a year ago.
Yeah. And how many miles of road will that cover, 150? I don't know what,
It's hard to say, because we don't necessarily use it strictly for paving, mostly for paving, but road repair, I mean, we could be doing the cross drain, improving some infrastructure for drainage.
mhm.
A lot of it is overlaying type material. What were we paying last year? I think we're paying, it's like $85 a ton right out of Oxford, and they were the only one around. Lanes has closed the gate there for the last couple of years. So we're limited on our options, but
How do you feel about our current roadways, and what do you hear from folks in the town?
I think overall, we're looking good compared to neighboring communities. Sure, we have some rough roads, we've got some things on the docket that we'd like to make some improvements on roads that are so far gone, like a G French Road, if anybody's familiar with that one. That's a constant patch. We're doing perpetual care there weekly.
And it's narrow,
That's, yeah,
not much.
that might stay fairly narrow anyways if it ever gets done. It might be the layout of it.
Yeah.
But smooth travel is not there. That's just one, for instance, but I think overall, our roadways in town are very good.
Are you asphalt, in favor of asphalt, or the overlay that chip
The
seal?
chip
Chip
seal.
seal?
Yeah, chip seal.
Chip seal is a very good product for your second and tertiary roads. I wouldn't want to put it on Mugget Hill or
Yeah.
Main Drive, that's a strictly asphalt. But it keeps the water out, and it has extended lives of roads for, I mean, we did some like 12 years ago that we haven't had to go back and do. So it's a very good extension of life, and it's something that you can repeat over. So if it's a road that's off the beaten path and you want to chip seal it for a third of the asphalt cost every 10 years, probably gain on
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I know-
They did my road, and it's perfect. I mean,
it. I know there's been some complaints. The product we used to use was a lot looser. It was a hot oil in stone. We've gone to a rubberized liquid in stone, so it's not that kickback. They sweep it right after they put it down, and it's a completed process. I think up to maybe 5 years ago, we were still using the hot oil and stone, and it was kind of like dragged out for a couple of weeks. We have to repeatedly sweep it. We get loose stone every day. Intersections were a daily clean.
Yep.
Once we went to the 10% rubber, it changed drastically.
Mhm.
That's a much better product. And it's still at a reasonable price point.
Okay. Yeah, oh, I was just wondering, because I like it myself, at least it works for me. So
Yeah.
I just didn't know what your thoughts were.
What about roads that get added that were like private roads that go to town meeting and get accepted as town roads? Do you have to budget in different costs for that maintenance because it's additional roads that were no longer that weren't in your budget before?
I believe as the miles rack up, we start getting into accepting bigger developments. Certainly it'll have a cost. I think it's kind of incremental at first,
Okay.
but as they do add up.
Okay. I can think of a couple that are probably not super far off from that process, but they're small roads. So I didn't know, like, when does it kick you into thinking about those changes? Or
Yeah, well, I think if we started seeing say, 3 or 4 developments a year,
Okay,
it really trigger an increase.
okay.
Right now,
I would hope when the town accepted the road, it would be, at that point, good for another 10 years or 15 years before it needed.
Yeah.
Fair. Fair point.
Yeah, I mean, when we accept them in pristine
Pristine
condition.
condition, correct. Yeah, that should keep it down. And the last item I see here is the stormwater construction. No, that's got a
Construction
zero number,
drainage,
that's got a
that's
zero
allowed.
number, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, let's see, where's your capital? There it is. There it is. All right, if you want to walk us through your capital
Yep.
request for the year.
The street sweeper touched on the MS4 and the obligations we have with the state, and we keep up with it. And in an effort to satisfy their request, we would have to double our street sweeping, essentially.
How many do we own?
We have one, and it's a 1999, and we're hanging on by a thread. This one, that's really the one that I was coming here to beg for.
Mhm.
The one we have now, it's reluctant to send it out, because every time it does, we're tinkering with it, we're constant breakdowns. We send it out when we have to, obviously, but the very next time it goes out, there's a chance that might be its last time.
Yeah.
They need a lot of maintenance, huh?
They're a fickle machine, constant dust and water going through it, a lot of moving parts. And they're expensive, the parts are expensive.
What
This-
happens if we can't keep up with that? Like, what are the, no, I'm not suggesting this in any way, shape, or form. I'm just wondering the consequences of, like, the state is it a mandate? Is it a?
Yeah, it's actually a federal permit that allows us to dump water into the waterway. So failure to maintain could result in EPA fines.
And at what point does $300,000 look cheap?
Never looks cheap.
No, I'm just saying, if EPA comes in here and starts saying, yeah, it's $30,000 for that, and $50,000, is that the kind of fines we're?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the fall, I inquired for a new one, same exact machine we have now, just a 23,
Yeah.
just $277,000. I got a quote, says, if we wait till 2004, basically add 5%.
Okay.
That gets us up to 291,
Yeah.
and by the time we do get to purchase it, that's where I went with the 300.
Yeah. And what's the lead time on a piece of equipment like that?
That isn't long at all. That's like a month.
Oh, okay.
Those are already ready to build, ready to go. We have them on
Yeah,
standby.
okay.
Not like a truck where it's gonna take us a year and a half to get.
Right, that, because I know some of your Sanders and stuff have taken a
So-
long time. No, I was just wondering, because if ours dies, okay?
Right, and that's really where we're at. That's why I think we should really consider this the priority for the DPW department.
Are there any other options that are available, used, beg, borrow, and steal, like, just wondering, just throwing it out there.
Can you hire it out if you get in a bind?
You can, yeah, there are companies that we can pay to come in and do our sweeping, sure,
They're twice the cost.
of
Yeah,
course.
it'd be more expensive, but in a bind.
And to buy used, I'm not really sure how that works. We've
You don't
never
want
done it.
used.
Yeah.
I don't think
You
the
don't-
town's residents would appreciate it.
That would be an option.
But my cousin had a street sweeping company in Worcester, and every single night he was up till 10 o'clock fixing those things.
Yeah.
Somebody's getting rid of it for.
Yeah,
Not
you
fun.
understand,
Headache.
what
They're not
we're up
fun.
against.
Yeah,
And we have one, so
yeah,
that goes down with a major issue, we're scratching our head.
yeah.
Are there any EPA grants to help reduce the cost to get rid of the $19,000 of waste?
No, they don't like giving money out.
Yeah.
They just like taking money.
Yeah.
Worth asking.
They had years ago given us a stormwater grant to get stormwater up and running, but it wasn't anything to like help us with really anything. It was more of like a, here, this is new, it's up and running, market it to your townspeople. It was us and a couple other communities type, make a commercial to show everyone what stormwater is, but they're not gonna give us grants to help us. Cause we also have a lot of roadways that we need to start fixing. So stormwater was a 10-year program, we're in year 5, then going into year 6. I think year 6 through 10, we have to start improving roadways that don't have stormwater to put stormwater in them. So that's gonna start getting costly too.
The stipulations get stricter.
Yeah, that falls under
Further along.
conservation, that part of it. But conservation and the DPW work really well together about getting stuff done for stormwater, because it affects both of them, so.
So is that gonna be part of his capital expenditures?
No, so I'm meeting with conservation tomorrow, to talk about her capital expenses, to see what she's got coming up. I don't know what we have. We'd have to look up the permit to see where we are.
So it's
But it would fall
their
under
obligation to put them in, and it's his obligation to keep them clean.
More or less.
More or less, yeah,
Okay,
We're the workforce, so.
yeah.
right, okay, I was just trying to.
And a lot of it's gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it looks like it's private roadways and stuff too, because those are the ones that are around the lakes. So that's what happens, it's all, a lot of it happens to fall around where all the lakes are, which are roads that we don't own.
Yeah.
But we're required by the government to put all these regulations into place on roads that we don't own. So
Yeah. So
it's fun.
just for your own edification, I found back in 2015, the town of Swampscott was fined under violation of the MS4 permit, $65,000 civil penalty for failure to maintain their MS4 system. So
Mhm.
that's the kind of penalties that they.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a $500 fine or a $1,000 fine, yeah,
Sounds like we're stuck.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we also want to do this for the environment. I'm
Right.
really gonna say that again, like,
Yeah.
this is something that we
Yeah.
don't want to put off,
Yeah.
because we have private wells in this community, and we do not need any more impacts to private wells.
There's have been some towns that have instituted to a stormwater, like, user fee surcharge on, I wanna say they go on their, like a water bill. There's been some towns that have done that to try to raise the money to help with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's typically not well received.
Well,
It's,
right.
no, because it's
No.
they.
But that's how
There's
far
like a
we go.
residential rate, then there's an impervious surface rate. It's all, it might be a $10 surcharge per resident, but it's for what? you
Right.
know?
But that's how, like, how serious it is that communities are gonna try to raise money because they don't have a choice. They can't afford a $65,000 fine, so.
It looks like the rest of your capital is, you're on this, let's recycle, let's replace our vehicles over.
Right.
a timeline.
The freight line dump trucks with sand salt units, I feel like every other year, kind of telling you the schedule that we're on for a little while till we get, at least the last 3 oldest trucks replaced.
Mhm. Do you have any trucks on order that haven't come in yet?
We do. We have 2 that were ordered October of '22. And we bagged and completed to have them for this winter, just one. We wanted to, reason with them, and they said, take a hike, basically, not a chance. So
Okay.
you'll be lucky to have them by spring. So they tell you a year and a half now, which really means more like 20 months probably.
Yeah.
So I got a question, how does that work with our budgeting? So that was obviously approved 2 years ago. Do we allocate that, put it aside?
Yeah, so any of the articles that go to town meeting for capital projects, they get to keep until the last penny is spent, unless they don't need it anymore and tell me to close it. So he'll have that money until, if he doesn't use all of it, so say the trucks, say he got 200,000, the trucks only cost him 150, but then he needs to do work on those trucks, he can keep spending that money, as long as it's for those specific trucks.
Yeah.
Or if he says, hey, they only end up costing 150, I can close out the other money, but they keep it until it's spent.
Okay.
But from our budgetary standpoint, what we're seeing is that requests are coming in a year earlier than they
Earlier.
were because the understanding that I'm gonna need this 2 years from now. So
Right.
we're trying to budget even closer, and we're seeing with ambulances
Right.
specifically, because they're on a specific time replacement schedule, but now those are out 2 years. So
You're
we're
gonna start
pulling,
seeing requests
It'll be
for
way
that.
ahead of the game.
Yeah,
we're trying.
yeah. So you'll see he's gonna ask for an ambulance this spring. The only nice thing about the ambulance is that it's within their ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation account, so it's the revenue generating, so he has the money set aside to pay for it.
Yep.
At least that's our goal,
Yep.
whereas other departments don't have the same.
Well, I know, if they went out and charged everybody $50 to plow in front of their driveway.
Right.
They could probably pay for one of these trucks real quick.
I'll try that.
Yeah, you gotta collect it though.
Don't send me.
And the mini excavator, yeah, okay.
The mini was on there, previously, it was actually on last year's, I swapped it, I went with the skid steer instead.
That's
I
what,
thought it would be a little more useful
Yeah.
for our operation. It's actually come in very handy.
yeah.
And that was, I think we had it a week later.
Yeah.
We do, when we repave a road, we gotta cut all the driveways and the ends of the road to tie it in properly. One of the attachments we got was a cold planer. And, that's gonna move the process right along.
Mhm.
Plus, it's not, two guys with a cut-off saw, cutting every driveway for a mile and a half. And $1,000 worth of blades every time you go out.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, it's really gonna pay off.
Good. And a Ford 250.
Yeah, we have
Good luck buying one at $55,000.
the base model 250, that's, no.
Roll up
Yeah,
windows,
more
they
like
don't even-
62.
Probably by then, yeah.
Right,
But
right,
I think
right.
if you got one right now, that's probably a good price.
But it looks good right now in
At
your
today's
budget. Let's
price.
just leave it on your
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
At today's price,
Yeah.
you're right.
Maybe the market will go down by then. Let's be hopeful.
Anything else you want to make us aware of while you have our attention?
Yes, just to put it on your radar, the building where we hold our salt, that roof is looking rather ugly. We're getting a little bit of leakage inside. It's just a 3-wall building with a roof just to keep our salt dry. You know, we don't need anything fancy down there, but,
That
Shingle
tin-
over.
That tin deck? Oh,
it's, yeah,
shingle.
shingles, it's plywood and shingles. And at this point, I think it's a matter of replacing maybe half the plywood and then re-shingling it. The further out we go, obviously, it could change to a complete job.
Will you make it through this year with,
Yes,
all right.
yes.
You won't lose too much salt because it leaks?
No, it's not to that extent.
Okay.
But you're seeing rot spots that are twice the size of the table, a few different places inside there. And the other building that we have, I mean, these buildings gotta be over 50 years old, and they're just plywood and telephone poles kind of
Mhm.
nailed together, so that one might need a little security as well down the line.
Okay, but that wasn't something you wanted to include in your capital?
It's actually something that really just came up this week,
Oh, okay,
so that's why I wanted to mention it, but I didn't throw it on.
yeah, okay. But
We'll
it-
talk, maybe we can
But
do,
it could be,
maybe we can make it a Bay Path project or something if,
yeah.
for the salt shed, depending what you need.
Okay.
Anything else, Nick?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, anybody got any questions? Nick?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Yep, thank you.
Hope we get to do this for many years on.
Me as well. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the second of our two hearings. You guys want to sit up here so we don't have to look way over there?
Yeah.
Sure.
I noticed, he keeps hiding behind that flower.
Found my world.
Nice trying. Thanks, Nick.
Okay, thank you.
got 15 more minutes. We will keep these at an hour and a half. That's my goal, hour and a half. If we can't get it done in an hour and a half, we're doing something wrong. But I did ask Andrew just to take a few minutes to go through ClearGov, just how you get on and how you log in. We don't have to go into how it works yet.
Is it up here?
Yeah, I'm gonna put up on the big TV.
I think
Oh.
if we take 10
Oh,
or
can you
15
share?
minutes
Yeah,
at
I
each
can
meeting.
Yeah.
Andrew logged on to Zoom, he can share, hold on.
Here, I will sign it now, so it's at
Because if we use this more,
Yep,
we can then see the comparisons year to year,
yes.
okay?
So
Because that was one of the things that I missed.
Yeah, so the only thing, so if you look at the big budget, I don't know if I've updated it, but
Well,
the big budget that I put in the Dropbox, and the old budget, I think has the comparison on it, but not updated it, but I can. But ClearGov will have it.
It did, it had 22.
I don't know, yeah, I don't know if I've changed
Yeah, we
it
gotta-
to
we gotta
the
update the revenues,
24,
too.
yeah.
When does 24 close? I mean, 23?
23.
Because we all that's in there is budget, not final?
So
Actual.
I'm gonna email ClearGov and have them put the actuals in.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, so if you sign in here, would be your email account, so, you know, your password, I'll bring it into the home page here. You might not see all of this,
I was just gonna say, I don't see any
Yes.
of that.
Yeah, once you log in, you'll start seeing that stuff.
So FY '25 general fund budget,
Do you wanna go in from the side, cause they probably don't have a little short
Yeah.
link there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, see, Andrew, that's why I wanted to,
okay,
when I logged in,
Yeah.
all I saw was that general budget, that very first line item.
Yeah,
Everything else, I didn't see any of it.
yeah, so he has that, cause when we go in, that brings up like your most recently viewed stuff.
so I'll make it link.
So you're in it a lot, and so,
Right, so yeah, you see all the stuff that we can go into, so it pops up automatically for us.
Yeah, so you should see operational budget and then FY '25 general fund budget should be here. If it doesn't, if it shows a different fiscal year, you can toggle between fiscal years right here, between FY '24 back to '22. So go into '25. We open up the general fund budget. It should be, you know, splash screen that you see as you come in. So these that have faded out markers, this will be projected, or basically our projected budget. The solid green, that's actual.
So I'll have actuals 23s in there once ClearGov can upload them, and then you won't have 24s until the year's closed.
So that should show you some, and there may be some discrepancies between true actual as we upload revenues and stuff, so it might show over budget, but at the end of the year, we weren't over budget.
Yep.
This also takes into account too, it pulls in all the capital articles, but we might not go back and add the revenue in, so you can see a little discrepancy there too, because it takes all of our actual expenditures in our accounting system and puts them into ClearGov when we send it to them.
So it shows a deficit, but again, we haven't updated the revenues. The governor just released her budget today, so we still have to factor that in as well.
Yeah, so probably a couple more days until we have our, what they call the cherry sheet numbers from the state.
now all the department heads, though, they're working in here, so it's up to date as.
Yeah, so you'll see a column in here, I saved out, I think it's FY '25, I don't know if I renamed it, but it's the department head requested column. So that's everything that they requested. The new column that's in yellow is any columns that Andrew or I would make changes to as we go along.
Yeah. So if I expand the expenditures, you'll see each of the major categories here: general government, public safety, education, public works, down the line. As you toggle over, you'll see a couple of different sheets. So FY, let's see, FY '24, it's a little misrepresented, or the title's a little bit off, but that's gonna be our number that was approved by town meeting vote, and I believe that we've updated this after the special town meeting vote, so what's in here should be reflective of the updated numbers and not what was approved back in.
The actual piece.
Yes, you should see all the stipends in there, the addition to the police, salaries for the addition of the deputy chief.
I'll just,
So if you look at moderator, we probably have something in there now. Should have stipend.
Does the change in the school budget because of Dudley's non-pass already in
should
here?
be in there as well.
What's the debt services?
So
Debt service is all of our, debt payments, so for like
Fire.
right now, we're still paying on this FY '25, I believe is our last year of highway, so the highway building, the
Okay.
public safety loan that we have for the public safety building that we took out, that 1.4 million that we spent. You have the, South Charlton Dam that we, fixed, so that debt borrowing, those are my 3 long-term borrowings, then you have a couple short-term borrowings that we just borrow. We renew every year, the long-term ones we go out to bid on, so those are, set payment schedule for the life of the loan. The short-term ones we go out once a year, those are small things, like, we usually do them on like, the fire trucks, cause they're so expensive. I think right now I have fire truck with a tanker. The, Maynard Field project, I think I have a short-term borrowing on that. There's a handful of like short-term pay downs that we have, we call them pay downs. So that all sits in one account. The only debt service that doesn't sit there is debt service for water and for sewer, those sit in their budgets. So these are all of our debt service payments sit in one account. Under one umbrella at least.
Yeah, so if you scroll near the end here, the most recent column, I believe that you guys will see will be FY '25 department head requested. So this should be what the department heads submitted themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of who may have put some comments in, public safety.
Yeah, if you scroll all the way over, I think you'll see
Yeah.
the green in there.
Yeah, so if I expand fire,
Again,
just expand all.
I'll say that as far as you have to go, but you should see their comments.
So this will show every single line that's in here. Just want to get back down to fire.
Police has some comments in there if you want to scroll over.
All right, yeah. So you'll see here, they can put comment in. Here, Mara attached a copy of the Excel spreadsheet that you guys have to this line, so as you go in, you could actually pull up what they submitted for the Excel sheet.
Okay.
Or any other backup that they think is necessary, they just tell them to attach somewhere in there.
Yeah, and we can, and if we want to just have discussions about individual line items, we can talk back and forth through here saying provide additional information or.
So if we leave a comment, who sees it?
Andrew and I.
Just the two of you?
I believe so.
But if I left a comment now, for instance, you're right in the police salary account.
Yeah.
If I were to leave a comment there, would the chief see it? Because it's in his,
That I'm not positive.
We haven't tested that yet
Yeah.
with reviewers.
So what happens is they're
Okay.
requesters, and then once I lock them as requesters as of December 31st, so they can't put anything else in here, and I make them reviewers so they can see everything, so they can see the whole budget.
yeah,
And like you guys can, so they can see the live edits, and then any edits that they need to make after December 31st, like, I think Highway had forgot to update some of his salaries.
Yeah.
So I made the change in that yellow column, so you'll see a discrepancy between what you see in his Excel spreadsheet to what his FY '25 department head requested is, because they can't make changes anymore because I locked them out.
Okay.
So only Andrew and I can make changes to the budget now.
Yeah, so, and if you click on here, basically if it's green, it means that there's something there to look at.
Yep.
So right here, there's a note, and here, just put in that contract negotiations are this year, so they're not factored in. So basically, they're not factored
Yeah.
into the total.
So it just reminds us that when we do factor, we need to remember, they don't just have their salary increase, she's also needing to update salaries plus OT. plus any of their vacation stuff, because she factors all of that based on average of their salary.
Yep.
So when salary goes up, those numbers are also gonna change, so it's a reminder for her and for us that all those would need to
Alright.
change. So that, it's nice that they put notes and stuff in there, cause it reminds not only them, but it reminds us too.
And then if you hit column, right, you can add last year.
Yep, so if you play with that columns,
Right, go back.
button that's up top, you can like delete stuff out of there, you can add stuff, so you have all of those options there.
So they should have every available
23,
version.
and do a comparison.
That's where I got stuck,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know which version to add for each, some of them were like blank and some of them weren't blank.
Yeah, so if you go to, like,
I was trying to do actuals. 'cause
I
some
think
of
if
them
you go to
didn't
like the
show.
last, so like the FY '24, if you go to, I think it's like the last choice is usually the most recent. When it
Yeah,
falls
so
in
like
there,
STM FY
for
for
revised.
revised, those were the revised numbers. So now if I plug that in, well,
Yeah.
see FY 25 requested,
And the only nuisance with this is that I have to like save a copy of the budget to send it out to everybody, so you see like 3 FY '25 columns until, or 2 of them before they get sent to them. Then I have to save like a sent budget to them, but it's really just repeating FY '24's budget, and then you see their column. So it's just a little, so some of the columns aren't really necessary, so like I hide a lot of them
Mhm.
when I'm looking, cause like the FY '25 sent to department head budget doesn't matter, cause it's just what I sent to them, so they could edit.
that's their we
Yeah.
essentially send them their baseline.
Yeah.
So we have to create a new one as a baseline and say, okay,
Now you
here's
can
what
edit.
you're starting with, what do you wanna change? When we get back, it's the department head requested.
Right.
Yep.
And then I have to lock that so it saves a column, and then as we start editing and getting further along in the process, I'll probably save that yellow column to another name.
Yep.
and
So
then-
right now, we all have review capabilities.
Correct.
Right, so we can look at anything. If we start changing columns like this, it only affects our
View.
our
yes,
view, not
Correct.
your view. or-
Correct. Yeah, everyone's is their own.
Good to know.
Huh?
So you
I've
can
been in
play.
there moving columns around.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah,
We
well,
can't do
that's,
anything.
Jeremy, that's.
We get to tell me,
I like
Jeremy.
things in a particular order too, and I
Yeah.
just didn't wanna mess up.
Yeah, no, it
Somebody
won't, it will
else's.
only mess up your view, so you guys can't make any changes to anything, so nothing will mess up for us.
All right.
So like
If
I'll-
he changes something, not column view, but if he changes numbers, it changes it for
It's gonna
everybody.
change.
Yeah, so only him and I right now can make changes to
Alright.
anything else.
So what I'd like to see everybody do is before the next meeting, spend some time with this and just play with it and just, get to understand it. And that way, maybe sometimes you can just send out, hey, I just updated police, I just
Yeah.
updated, and then we can all just go on
Yeah.
and take a look.
And I'm pretty sure as I edit and save things, you should get notified that there was a change made to the budget.
Mhm.
I don't know if everybody gets that, I would assume so. I know like when I edit a department's budget, they get notified.
Okay.
So that's why we like it was more clear.
Does everybody here have well, of course, it's your email is your username, but
Yeah.
does everybody have an account here now?
If you
or-
don't have a
I guess
password,
so, I haven't tried it.
yeah, so if you go in, just type your email in, then hit forgot password, and it will email you a password.
Okay.
And then you can go in and change it if you want to.
Did you get the link today? I sent you a link for the Dropbox folder.
I did, which is how I had it up, looking at what we
Okay,
were
all
coming
right,
to
so,
talk about
so
today.
you're all set with that?
Yeah, I had that, thank you.
Yeah, I'm set with that too.
Yeah, I know I approved yours, but I didn't see that I got one that's requested you to deal with.
It opened, I don't know.
I went in and saved stuff and it didn't save it, I had to have Jackie upload it, and then finally I uploaded something and it worked, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right.
So, just this view I just added. So this will show a percentage of the budget for each one of the major line items. You can see like employee benefits at the bottom, that's 13.5% of the total budget. But I highlighted education, our educational total is 52.2% of our total budget. But if I say click on that education and I come up here, you'll see education expenses. This will show our graph over time back to 2018 of what we have spent for education.
And I would imagine if we looked at, compared to other communities, 50 to 55% is reasonable for what our budget should look like.
It's usually around 50%.
Yeah,
So-
so I think we're in where we wanna be for that.
All you did was highlight the education line and the graph changes?
Correct, yeah, so as soon as you click on something, so I'll just go here to general government. Quick general government, you can see where this graph now changed. See, it's a little
Right,
bit
yeah.
more, you had a spike, you're actually spending more back in 2020 for your general government expenditures than you are today.
Mhm.
I can't see the number that's red because the glare and the light, but.
Yeah, so I think that red is
But I-
essentially because
What
it
year
kind of
is-
throws it off is if we put if there's a capital line item that's in
Right,
there.
okay.
We don't, and we pulled that from free cash, we don't typically account for free cash on the revenue side that projects it, so it throws the numbers off just a little bit, so.
I was gonna ask,
That's
is
the
that
only
during
downside.
ARPA or something? Is it like funding that could have come from a different source?
It was probably a capital item, so it was probably, free cash or,
Yeah, okay.
or borrowing.
Okay.
That's the only nuisance I've heard from department heads, they don't like to see all that extra in there, cause nothing that we budget on, but when I send ClearGov our actuals, they load it all in, so. 'Cause I know everyone was complaining, there's too many lines in here for my budget, I know the fire chief was one of them, cause he has a lot of lines.
Yeah.
Cause he itemized everything out, cause it's easier for him to see that way, so he doesn't like to see all his capital in there, cause we don't budget on that, but it's in the system, so. But that's the only.
All right, so you all know your homework for the next meeting as far as this goes, right?
Yep.
I expect us to be able to teach Andrew.
Lower your expectations.
All right, so the last thing I had, just a quick discussion on Zoom meetings. You'll notice that there's a link on this agenda. I think there should be a link on every agenda, anybody, but one of the policies I'd like to see us institute is, it's for observing only, instead of having somebody having to monitor the Zoom and questions, and, I mean, that can get bogged down in my mind. I think it's good that we be public about our meetings, but I just don't want the participation part to get to bog us down. So if everybody's in agreement with that, I'll stop putting this.
Do you mean if you're, like, if I was at home instead of
Right.
here, and I had a question, which I think Kristen might have had a question.
Yeah, Kristen
and
had the same question you asked.
She thinks that I read it, but I didn't, so
Well,
I'm
I
glad
think
that
she
she's.
said, thanks, Jamie, because you asked the same question. She
I didn't read her question until
Yeah.
afterwards, and I looked up and I was like, oh, she had the same question.
Yeah.
But if I was at home as a participant, and I had a question, I would love to be able to type the question into the chat. But if you mean, like, my husband, a general public person to type questions, I can appreciate what you're saying, but.
Oh, Bill asked.
Yeah, it was
What-
more the general,
Okay.
not a
Yeah.
committee member that can't physically be at the meeting and
Okay.
wants to participate, that's fine.
Okay,
But there were 13 questions behind me.
Agreed.
Okay?
Yeah.
I could see where it bogged us down. So, I'd like to, again, include that that Zoom link on
Yeah.
every
I
agenda.
can tell you it would be nice, because if it snows next meeting, I lose my babysitter. That's the downside for me.
Okay.
Speak loud.
so when you did sign in, and Kristen said it up there, it asks you, are you joining as a, I forget, a participant?
Yeah.
Kind of-
Yeah, we can, Andrew or I, whatever one, we can promote you to a panelist too. So like Bill's in, he said, I'm here, but like he's only an observer, so he can't see anything, but where I made you and Kristen panelists, so they can participate in the webinar, whereas somebody that's only observing can only observe and they can ask questions.
Yeah.
You
that's what
you
it was.
Bill
let
did
each
that a lot last
person,
year.
you let each one in, each person.
Yeah, we have to allow them to join as a
Right.
panel, otherwise
And
it's a
you
webinar.
designate us that.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Bill's
it's kind
he's
of
here.
like on ClearGov, where we can be, reviewers, or we can be editors, or whatever. It's your permissions that are granted.
No, I think it's a great idea, because you have to travel or,
Yeah.
right, still participate.
Great. Yeah,
Especially
Mike
with the next
called,
couple of meetings coming up.
Mike
we
called me
want
this
different
afternoon.
times.
I'm sorry, I can't, I intended to make tonight's meeting, but he got called away.
Right. I think it'll be nice too, is once you have department heads here, if you didn't have quorum, if you could have it, if somebody could still join remotely,
Right.
it allows you to still have the meeting even with all the department heads here.
I mean, it helped me with getting my childcare, my husband getting home so I could leave to come here, so.
Yeah,
And then I could still listen, so.
right.
So that's all I had on the agenda. Anybody got anything that was unknown at time of posting?
Government booster budget,
Huh?
we got
Yeah.
the financial management letter back.
Yeah, I'll bring, our audit is all done, so I'll bring that to our next meeting.
Okay, good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second? Second over here. Those in favor say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Opposed say no. It's a vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.